Welcome to the P.A.S. Report podcast. If you're tired of censorship, outraged by government abuses, and thirsty for real insights, then you're in the right place. Get ready, because here, the fight for freedom never ends. Here's your host, Professor Nick Giordano.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the P.A.S. Report podcast. This is your host, Nick Giordano. I'm glad you could join me today. Make sure you follow and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Also, visit the P.A.S. Report website, pasreport.com, and share this episode with your family and friends. Put it on social media. It's because of you the podcast has grown tremendously, and today I want to talk about the mysterious drone phenomenon that's been unfolding over New Jersey and New York, particularly my area, right here in Long Island. If you've been paying attention to the news, you've seen videos, you've heard the statements from government officials, but what's really going on? And that's the thing, we still don't know. So we have to ask, why aren't we getting any straight answers? You know, the government and the media loves to label everyone a conspiracy theorist, but understand, this isn't a conspiracy. People are seeing it with their own eyes. They're recording it with their own phones. We're dealing with real events, verified sightings, and the lack of transparency from our government is extremely concerning. You know, given this administration's track record, you know, you look back, you think of how Biden and company operate, how they haven't been models of accountability or transparency over the years. You look at our intelligence agencies and what they've done over the years, and you can't help but speculate as to what's really going on, because the lack of answers, it's what fuels the speculation. It's not about what's happening now. It's a pattern that we've seen from this administration, a pattern of evasiveness, time and time again. And when the government leaves a vacuum of information, well, speculation is going to fill the void. But here's what we know so far. Over the past few weeks, residents in New Jersey, New York, and a few other states, they've been spotting large drones. Some of these videos look like they're small planes, but they're flying in formations, they're flying at night, and these aren't the kind of drones that you see people flying at local parks or, you know, architects doing surveys or something like that. These are high-tech, high-capacity drones, and they're the kind that you would think of in a military operation or maybe a foreign government and their military and intelligence operations. But you don't really see this on a regular basis. I mean, this is something that's fairly new and has sparked a lot of concern. Then you have DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. He's done little more than to reassure Americans. I mean, this guy's an idiot. How he's still there is beyond me. But I guess it doesn't matter because in a month he'll be gone. But he's offered vague reassurances. Nothing to see here, no big deal. We got it under control. No details though, no transparency. Just the usual Mayorkas speak. I mean, that's what it is. It's just being evasive, not answering questions, saying that they're tackling it, just like he said he secured the border, right? And this is the guy who will still claim that the border has been secure under this administration, that we haven't seen a flood of illegal immigrants come through to the United States. So I just want you to keep that in mind. I do want to play a clip for you, however. And this clip is from a leading drone manufacturer who says that these drones are raising red flags to him. He doesn't think anything nefarious is coming from it necessarily, but he says it raises some red flags. Take a listen.
Now, drones, they have no reason to be in the air at night unless you're doing some type of ISR work, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, you know, looking for bad guys or looking for a victim, a search and rescue victim, or law enforcement, or some type of military project, right? There's no reason for a drone to be flying at night, really, okay? Because they don't see. So, you know, unless you have thermal optics, drones really don't see stuff. You need to do mapping during the day. If you're going to do farming stuff, mostly do it during the day. The only reason why you would ever fly an aircraft, an unmanned aircraft at night, is if you're looking for something.
Now listen, I readily admit, I am not a drone expert, but to me, this guy is making a solid point. I understand Homeland Security, I understand threat assessments, I understand risk assessments, I understand vulnerability, and if you're flying drones at night, you're not delivering Amazon packages, you're not capturing footage for some type of event or for scenic footage that you want to put online. I mean, you're gathering intelligence, searching for something, conducting some type of operation. And the question is, whose operation is this and for what purpose? The idea that this could all be above board, it really doesn't add up when you think about it. Your Secretary Mayorkas wants to assure us everything is legal, but he doesn't reveal anything specific, which only fuels more skepticism. And why not tell us outright if this is a sanctioned activity, right? If it's law enforcement, say which agencies are involved. If it's commercial, well, which company is behind it? But instead, we get just these vague reassurances, and that's it. And when you consider this administration's track record on issues like the withdrawal from Afghanistan, right? It took Tony Blinken 3 years to admit that the whole withdrawal was a debacle, to acknowledge the 13 lives lost in that withdrawal. The border crisis, they still don't admit that. The inflation, not their fault, not their responsibility. Remember, it was supposed to be transitory. That's what Secretary of Treasury Janet Yellen said. So you have this lack of clarity in all these different areas, and it's the same pattern. Dodge, deflect, and people are tired of it. That's why they went out and voted for Trump. I don't understand what these morons don't get about that. But there's broader issues here. And this broader issue goes back to a recurring theme on this podcast. It's the idea of public trust. What happens when you can no longer trust the information you're getting from your government, from the government agencies? Now, I always say that we should always remain skeptical of the government and government entities. But at the same time, we're supposed to have some level of trust in them. We have to believe that they're operating in good faith. If they're not operating in good faith, if we truly believe that they are not operating in good faith, that's a major problem. And this administration hasn't given us any reason to believe what they say because they've let us down time and time again. It's not just about the drones. It's about government, a government that seems incapable of being honest with the American people anymore. Now, I tend to believe that these are coming from our own military. It's some military exercise or operation they're running, some type of experiment they're running. But I can't say that with any certainty. I don't have any evidence to back up what I'm saying. You have others believe that they're looking for something specific, like radioactive material. You have others raising concerns about foreign surveillance, that, maybe it's Iran using their drones coming into the United States to conduct surveillance. But the lack of answers only makes the theories more plausible because we don't have anything else to grab a hold to. And understand, the reason that this is so dangerous is because it's really not that difficult to laden a drone with explosives. So these can become deadly weapons. They potentially can become weapons of mass destruction. You have the technology itself. These aren't your neighbor's hobby drones. We're talking about sophisticated aircraft here, large-scale drones with capabilities far beyond what we could purchase. And if they're being used by a corporate entity, well, who's flying them? What company would need drones this advanced, and why would they be operating them at night over heavily populated areas? So we look at this. Then you have Kirby, and I'll get into him in a minute, where he says, oh, it's a hobbyist. Maybe hobbyists are behind this. It's laughable. Hobbyists aren't flying drones this big, this late, or in these patterns. You're supposed to log everything with the FAA if you're flying drones, so where are the manifests? Why isn't the FAA releasing them? Public airspace belongs to all of us, and the FAA keeps records on who's flying what and where. So if the FAA is aware, release it. If everything is legal and above board, as Mayorkas claims, release the records. But the refusal to do so, it's only going to make us more suspicious. And it's really simple. You want to erase the public concerns? Tell us what's really going on. The longer you remain silent, the more questions we're going to ask. And the fact is, we deserve answers. Until we get them, speculation's going to continue to grow. But I'm going to dig deeper into the government's contradictory statements and the broader implications in the next segment. So everyone, hang tight. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the P.A.S. Report podcast. Now, I want to focus on the government's response, or lack thereof, because you have Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas. He's been the administration's point man on this issue. I don't know why he's the point man on anything at this point, but his statements have been less than reassuring. We'll just say that. Let's play a clip of him addressing these incidents.
And in September of 2023, the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, changed the rules so that drones could fly at night. And that may be one of the reasons why now people are seeing more drones than they did before, especially from dawn to dusk. And so that is the reality. But I want to assure the American public that we are on it. We are working in close coordination with state and local authorities. And it is critical, as we all have said for a number of years, that we need from Congress additional authorities to address the drone situation. Our authorities currently are limited, and they are set to expire. We need them extended and expanded.
What exactly do you need?
We want state and local authorities to also have the ability to counter drone activity under federal supervision. That is one important element that we have requested, and we've heard it echoed by the state and local officials themselves.
So he says the drones are being used legally. Okay, who's using them? For what purpose are they using them? Please explain it to us, Secretary Mayorkas. He doesn't do that. And why are they flying over populated areas in the middle of the night? These are basic questions, folks, and the fact that we're not getting answers is troubling. And it's not just Mayorkas. You have Admiral John Kirby, Secretary of Defense spokesperson. He's also weighed in. Now, in his first statement, he tried to downplay the whole thing, insisting, there's nothing to see here. I want to roll that clip.
We have not been able to, and neither have state or local law enforcement authorities, corroborate any of the reported visual sightings. To the contrary, upon review of available imagery, it appears that many of the reported sightings are actually manned aircraft that are being operated lawfully. The United States Coast Guard is providing support to the state of New Jersey and has confirmed that there is no evidence of any foreign-based involvement from coastal vessels. And importantly, there are no reported or confirmed drone sightings in any restricted airspace.
So according to Kirby, most of these sightings are just manned aircraft. Manned aircraft. Because the American people are too stupid to tell the difference between a commercial jetliner and a drone. Apparently, we're not smart enough to tell the difference. And again, if they're just manned aircraft, okay, who's flying these aircraft? I'm not talking about the specific pilot that's mentioned, but are they coming from any of our airlines? Are they FedEx planes going out or something like that? Let us know. But this is where it gets interesting, because he came out several days later and he says the activity involves, quote, lawful, legal, commercial, and hobbyist drones, as well as law enforcement operations. Take a listen to this one.
You hear all of these officials. You've heard a lot of concern, a lot of coverage. Where are you tonight on this?
As we look at the information we've got, Brett, and we've now examined some 5,000 different sightings, we've added detection capabilities, additional observers. As you and I stand here today, to date, our assessment is that this is lawful, legal, commercial, hobbyist, and even law enforcement aircraft activity. Some of it's manned, some of it's unmanned. We absolutely acknowledge that a lot of these are probably drones, but they're flying legally. And it is legal to fly drones in non-restricted airspace as long as you're registered with the FAA. And there's thousands and thousands of these kinds of flights every single day. I think there's more than 1 million drones that are registered with the FAA just in the United States alone.
So now it's hard to keep up with these people, right? What is it? What is it? Is it nothing to see? These are just manned aircraft, or is it lawful, legal, commercial, hobbyist drones? You see, the story keeps changing. And when the story keeps changing, well, again, that's where speculation is going to emerge. That's where you're going to start getting people making accusations that the government knows exactly what's going on and that maybe there is a national security risk. 1 minute it's nothing to see here, the next it's lawful and legal activity, but they still won't give us any details. Again, if it's commercial, give us the name of the company. If it's law enforcement, what agency? Because it appears that the law enforcement agencies in these areas have no idea. Oh, that's right. It's people for recreational use, right? The hobbyists that like to fly drones, right? It's them. In the words of Joe Biden,
come on, give me a break, man.
As I said in the last segment, the FAA could release a manifest, a record of who's flying what, but where are these manifests? I just say release them. It's public airspace, release them. Now, the lack of transparency, understand, this is not just they're incompetent nitwits. They are incompetent to a large degree. But there's something more sinister at play, because it's certainly a pattern of this administration. Time and time again, they have failed to provide clear, honest answers when the American people deserve them. Remember when the Secretary of Defense underwent major surgery? No one had any idea about it. The Undersecretary was in Puerto Rico, but the American people knew nothing. The President of the United States didn't even know anything. It's like communication with these people is an issue, obviously. And again, I could go issue after issue. We get the same story, right? You know, Hunter Biden's laptop. Well, that was nothing more than Russian disinformation. The whole lead up to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the withdrawal from Afghanistan, you know, time and time again. Bidenomics, best economy ever, right? Build back better. Best economy ever. Don't believe your wallets. Don't believe your economic livelihoods. Don't believe your paychecks and your bank accounts, your credit card statements. You got to believe the Biden administration. That Bidenomics has been wonderful for every American, despite your economic livelihood getting harder and harder, more difficult to stay afloat. And for them to say just enough to placate but not inform us, it's unacceptable. Okay, and that's a strategy that they're using. So the implications, if these drones are part of a government-sanctioned operation, that's fine with me. If you're doing some military program, just say, hey, it's the Department of Defense's. We're not going to elaborate and go into what we're doing. And then Congress could handle it behind closed doors in a classified setting to figure out what's going on. But at least we would know it's our own military. And it's quite plausible that this is the case. I mean, listen, it's not like the Department of Defense is going to advertise secret programs that we're working on or secret experimental aircraft that we may be working on. But now that the cat's out of the bag, we need to know who approved the activities, why weren't anyone looped into it, local officials, Congress, or anyone else. You have state and local officials that already contradicted Mayorkas' claims that DHS is working closely with them. They laugh at that because they're not. And it appears the federal government can't get their story straight. I mean, this is insane. On the other hand, if these drones are foreign, well, that's a pretty big problem. That we have foreign entities surveilling American cities, and it's not just a breach of our sovereignty, it's a national security threat. Now, shockingly, I didn't know this, but understand, the United States has some amazing capabilities. We have great capabilities. We could detect a missile launch anywhere in the world within seconds, okay? Anywhere. We could detect a missile launch. But I recently learned that when it comes to our detection systems of aircraft in the United States, well, apparently we could only really detect commercial airliners and fighter jets and stuff like that. We can't sit there and detect smaller aircraft like commercial drones. Well, that's a big problem, that we have to bring in certain types of drone detectors. I mean, we should have the skies covered. We're talking about a military defense budget of $850 billion. You would think our skies would be covered, that we would know when there's a friggin' bird flying. That revelation was astonishing to me, I'm not going to lie. Now, if it was a foreign entity that did it, I don't really believe that the Biden administration would simply sit back and say nothing. I would think that there's more to the story. And then there's the idea of the commercial interests that we talked about. Again, if Amazon or another corporation is testing drone services, that's fine. Tell us about it. And that's why I don't think it's any type of corporate entity. A corporation could easily come out there and say, hey, we're the ones doing it. Don't worry. Here's what we're doing, why we're doing it. Okay, so we have all these different ideas, but we have no answers. And the administration refuses to provide clarity. They just make you more confused. 1 minute it's manned aircraft, the next it's lawful drones. Which is it? We need a unified message. So you're either deliberately obfuscating the issue or you're completely incompetent, neither of which is good news for the American people. You have local officials that have voiced their frustration. They're being left in the dark. The public's in the dark about it. So where do we go from here? And if they don't know what these drones are, if they don't know who's flying these drones and the purposes that they're being flown in New Jersey and New York, well, then they need to do what Trump says and shoot one of them out of the sky and figure it out. Because that, to me, is a major concern. Now, we need to take a quick break, but in the final segment, I want to dive into what this all means for the future of our country. So everyone, hang tight. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the P.A.S. report. So what does this drone phenomena tell us about the current state of America? What does it tell us about our current government, our national security? The lack of trust that we have, the lack of trust between we the people and the officials that are in office. Because the bigger picture isn't just about mysterious drones over New Jersey and New York. The bigger picture is it's a story of Why can't we trust our government? Why can't we trust the public officials that we've sent to Washington, D.C. to serve the interests of the public? Why do these people believe that they are the gatekeepers of information, that they don't have to tell us anything? I mean, the fact of the matter is that, one, Congress needs to do their damn job of oversight, and Congress needs to start hauling people in and demanding answers. But two, these officials need to remember who they work for, because we've witnessed an erosion of public confidence in this country. And let's start with the basics. The federal government exists to protect its citizens and maintain transparency, especially when it comes to public safety and national security. The American people are responsible individuals. We can handle whatever information you provide to us. There's not going to be some crazy panic going on. But yet here we are weeks into the situation and we know nothing. We have more questions than answers. And that's why I don't believe anything these people tell me anymore. When I see drones flying around, and literally, I saw one myself, right in my family room. I look out the window. That was a weird day. That wasn't a plane, that's for sure. And you're telling me, oh no, these are just normal. Don't worry about it. Don't pay attention to it. So when people see these drones flying at night, when they see them flying in formation, when the drones look nothing like what hobby drones look like, or even corporate drones, and the government's offering vague responses and vague assurances, well, I'm going to be skeptical. And we should always be skeptical. But now I'm going to be really skeptical because we've seen the pattern before. And the implications, if it's part of a domestic operation, you need to tell us. We need to know what's going on. Because if you're testing surveillance technology on the American people, that's a problem for me. If there is a specific threat that we're trying to mitigate, we should know about it. Again, I'm not going down the whole radioactive material, maybe nuclear bomb in the United States. Perhaps there is, perhaps there isn't. But we need to know. You can't keep this from the American people. If it's corporate, we need to know what company has the capability to deploy these advanced drones and for what purpose. If they're not working with the government, if they're not contractors, if it's just some random corporate entity, okay, what are they doing? We need to know, especially given that they're flying over residential areas. If these drones are from a foreign government, they belong to a foreign entity, then we have a big problem. Why is this administration allowing a foreign government to violate our airspace, to violate our sovereignty? Why aren't we calling them out? Why aren't we slapping sanctions? Why don't we threaten them? And the reason I don't think it's from a foreign entity is because of George Hill, who's a friend of this program. He's been on plenty of times before. He basically stated the foreign entities aren't going to come in with their lights all shining, drawing attention to themselves. So that's the only thing that leads me to believe that it is not a foreign entity that's doing it. And the American people should be very concerned, no matter what the situation is. Because if these drones can go up and we're not getting the real answers, they're not accounted for, then we really got to start worrying about our privacy. We got to start worrying about our safety, our peace of mind, because that's the concern. And that's why transparency is so important, because the ripple effect on public perception. The government has no credibility, and we have to wonder, what is the truth about these drones? What else might they be hiding? What if these aren't just about drones? What if there's something bigger going on? We, the American people, deserve answers, not spin. And the more the government avoids addressing this issue head on, the more people will begin to draw their own conclusions, no matter how wildly wrong they may be. That's what happens. People have already lost faith in just about every single one of our government institutions, from everything that was done from the coronavirus to Afghanistan, the war on terror, spying on the American people, everything. And this will just be another reason to distrust the government. So remember, transparency isn't just like one of those cool buzzwords. It's the cornerstone of our republic. Without it, we the public are left in the dark. Sadly, we don't have the fourth estate anymore. It used to be that the media was the one that was the bridge between the people and the government. Today, most in the legacy media do nothing more than serve at the bidding of the government, pushing the government narratives. Government says nothing to see here, media reports nothing to see here, and that's all. They don't do investigative journalism. And while you have some great independent reporters out there, it's much more difficult for them to get accurate information than it used to be for the ones that worked for the legacy media. Let's hope we get some answers soon, because I don't know how much longer the American people are going to tolerate this. Don't forget to subscribe and follow this podcast so you never miss an episode. Also, make sure to share this episode with your family and friends. I want to thank you for joining me, and I will be back on Monday with another great episode of the P.A.S. Report podcast.
Thank you for listening to the P.A.S. Report. Don't forget to rate, share, and hit that subscribe button. That way you'll never miss an episode. For more exclusive content and updates, visit us at PASreport.com and follow Professor Giordano on all social media platforms at P.A.S. Report.